are some people out there that have done all of that. And so we have some very special guests today. I want to welcome Jim and Mark to the stage here. Thanks so much for joining us. How is everyone doing today?
We're great. How you doing?
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Us, Pat.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about yourselves and why you're here today.
Why don't you go first?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jim and I are authors of classic rock photographs from yesterday and today. That was our first book. Our new book is 70 Chicagoland Rock Concerts. And several years ago, after I retired, Jim and I decided to put our knowledge and writing experience and Jim's photographs together and to start writing books. And that's kind of why we're here now.
Yeah, Mark thought he was going to go in an easy chair the rest of his life. I said, no. You're going to work for me, and we're going to put something out there together. And that's how this all started.
Awesome. Now, your name is Jim Summaria. Is that the correct way of saying the last name?
It's close enough, but I'll take it.
Oh, close enough. Okay. You are a rock concert photographer. Tell us a little bit on how you got started in rock photography.
Well, this goes way back to 1973. I started taking photos at concerts. Back in the early 70s, you could bring a camera to concerts. So that's what I was doing. And I actually started with a little Kodak Instamatic, took some pictures. They got better and better. And then the place that I was bringing my photos to said, why don't you get a 35 millimeter camera? So I did that, taught myself how to use it, and I was getting pictures better and better. So finally, I snuck on the floor of a Led Zeppelin concert in 73, early 73. And I got some really, really good shots. The store I used to go to was called Flipside in Arlington Heights, and they used to have concert pictures on the wall. And I thought, hey, maybe I could sell a couple of, if they'll put some up. So they put them up, and they said, hey, anytime you shoot a concert, do that. So I brought in some more, and then I did another band. And then they said, your pictures are really good. Would you like to be our official photographer? I said, well, what do I have to do? They said, well, we'll get you into all the shows. You'll get backstage and you just shoot pictures of the concerts and just give us a 5x7. And I was 19 years old. The manager, Rich Carlson, did it for me. And the owners, Larry and Carl Rosenbaum, said, okay, because Flipside also was the producer, promoters, I should say, of all the rock concerts in Chicago, a lot of the rock concerts in Chicago. So starting in backstage at 19, and I did that throughout the 70s. And then I stopped doing it because I became a corporate photographer.
Very interesting.
That's how it all started.
So you've been around a lot. You've been to lots of concerts. You've seen a lot of famous people performing. Are there any particular concerts that really have stood out to you over the years?
Probably my favorite of all time was The Who, just because there were so many exciting things to photograph. I mean, John Entwistle wasn't too exciting, but the other three were great. Elvis, of course, was very cool. Zeppelin, as I said, McCartney, of the biggies. Yeah, but I also enjoyed a lot of the lesser-known bands like Jay Giles and Climax Blues Band. And there was a lot of excitement to photograph those bands back in the day. And it was a lot looser atmosphere where you could talk to the bands backstage. And unlike today, it's a little bit more difficult. But back then, everyone was just roaming around talking, and it was a lot of fun. Believe me, at 19 years old, it's like one day I'm buying tickets for a Black Sabbath concert, and all of a sudden I'm meeting Ozzy Osbourne. It's like unbelievable.
Crazy. Oh my goodness. I mean, you've spoken to so many people. I'm sure you've been so inspired. I'm sure you've also maybe inspired others out there too.
I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I've met so many other rock photographers, and we all kind of know each other. So I think we kind of feed off each other. And yeah, so hopefully I've inspired some people to do it.
Very cool. Now, your book does feature quite some interesting photographs too. Now, where can people, and especially music lovers out there, purchase your book?
Well, it's a lot of places. Probably the best place to do it for listeners is Amazon, but it's also at some record stores, Valhalla Records in Oak Park, Black Circle Records up in Lake Geneva, and Rolling Stone Records in Norridge, Illinois, Blue Village Vinyl out in Westmont. It's also at the Illinois Rock and Roll Museum in Joliet, many Barnes & Noble, Barbara's Bookstores, Hudson Gifts at the O'Hare Airport, You get it at the publishing company Arcadia, also at the Arcada Theater and the Des Plaines Theater. So there's a lot of different places you could buy it.
Very, very cool. I think what's great as a photographer is that you're there to capture a story. You're there to capture moments, right? And I think what it does too is it captures things that, you know, when you look at photography, of course, you know, you're there in the experience and it's very different. But what it is when you capture something, it's like frozen in time. So you're able to see an element, a moment of what did happen. As a photographer, how do you I guess you could say, how do you prepare for certain moments like this? Because you never really know what specifically could happen. When it comes to performances, if a certain rock artist is going to jump in the air. I mean, how do you prepare yourself for that?
Well, my whole career, I was a photojournalist. So you're always getting ready for the decisive moment, the one picture that tells the story. So I was used to that. Also, you need to know the music, you know, and you just get ready. You know, you have the camera at your eye and you're ready. And if you know the music, you know where the peak is going to happen. And you know when Pete Townsend's going to jump, or you know when some singer's going to scream or whatever it is. But you just have to be prepared, know the music, and just wait. I mean, when I take a picture, what I like is that people look at it and think, gosh, I was there, or I feel like I was there. So I try to communicate the story of the concert, and hopefully people, you know, next time that band comes through town, they go say, hey, I'll go see them, you know.
There you go. As we know, too, of course, when it comes to technology, we've grown so much as a society in technology, and photography has grown, too. Are there differences in photographing concerts today versus how it was back in the 70s?
Oh, a huge difference. Back in the day, it was all film. I would shoot color transparencies, and the lighting was very good, but you couldn't set your f-stop and your shutter speed too high, so it was very difficult in some lighting situations. Now with digital, your ISO, as they call it, you could set that very, very high, and the lighting is even stronger, so it's a lot easier. Plus, back in the day, I probably would shoot 2 rolls of film, sometimes 3. So you're talking anywhere between 70 and 100 pictures. Now I could shoot 1,000 pictures at a concert, and makes it easier. Back in the day, you had to wait and snap.
Yep.
And now it's like, that's a good one. That's a good one. Snap. So it was a lot easier today.
Absolutely. Now, we also want to introduce, of course, here Mark Plotnick as well, too. How did you and Jim come together to author rock music books later in your lives?
Well, it's a good question, Matt. Jim and I have known each other for 40 years. We started going while I was working in the corporate world. Jim and I would spend hours just talking about music. We had the same tastes in artists. We were very, very passionate about the music of our period. And we would go to a lot of concerts together. And I've been going to concerts, you know, I'm an old guy, so I've been going to concerts since the late 1960s. But I had retired from my corporate role. I was actually a writer and a market researcher and a marketer with some big companies. But I was always writing, but I was writing in areas that I was not just that interested in. So when I retired, Jim came to me and he said, you know, why don't we see where this goes? Let's take my photographs and your writing and our knowledge, and let's see if we can get a publisher. And that's how it started. It took us 11 months to get our first publisher for our first book. And then our second book, it only took us what, Jim?
Right away.
Right away.
First publisher.
The History Press really liked our idea. And so, you know, like I said, Jim and I have been going to a lot of concerts. Me as more of a concert goer, Jim as a photographer. But now that we've come together to do these projects, you know, I'll go to concerts with Jim, he'll shoot, and then I'll write. For example, Jim and I contribute concert reviews for Chicago Blues Guide. Jim does the same for Chronicle Media. He also shoots for them as well. And I do some freelance writing. But, I'm living my dream now. As a retired man, rock and roll music has always been my passion since I've been 9 years old. I started playing keyboards at the age of 9. So as a non-professional musician, I also bring a certain perspective in my writing. I understand about the performers, the technical aspects, their gear, and so forth. So that's it. It really goes back to Jim and I knowing each other 40 years and finally deciding, hey, let's have some fun this point in our life and see where it goes. And it's, as Jim calls it, we've been on an odyssey. We have a podcast now, and we've gotten to know a lot of musicians, and we've gotten to know some of the PR people at the venues, like the Genesee and the North Shore Center Space, Fitzgerald's, and a lot of times, we're able to get interviews for our podcast by, talking to some of the people who do the marketing and PR for these venues. And that's how Jim gets his photo passes too. Jim, why don't you tell him where you're a house photographer too?
Well, I shoot exclusively at the Arcata Theater in St. Charles and the Des Plaines Theater for Ron Onesti, and I've been doing that for 9 years. There's another photographer, Lou Bellotti, but I shoot a lot at the places Mark just said also. Hey Nani, did you say Hey Nani?
No, Hey Nani and Arlington Heights.
Base a lot up in Evanston and Genesee up in Waukegan, and actually sometimes I go up to Milwaukee,
Riverside,
yeah,
so forth.
Tomorrow I'm going to be at the Vic, photographing Larkin and Poe. So I just have to get the photo passes, but through the years I've got to know a lot of these people, and there's no problem getting them. I just want to go back to Mark's writing. Mark is an excellent writer, and what I think is so cool about our book, I mean, it's my photos, of course, but Mark wrote all these brief bios about each band, and he really got to the heart of each band on his bios. And there's 50 bands in the book, and you can learn a little bit about each one. And there's the set list and their influences and
quotes. I dug up a lot of interesting quotes from the musicians themselves, from other musicians talking about their colleagues. What I wanted to do, Matt, was, people don't have time to go out and buy a biography or an autobiography on an artist for 300 pages. So my goal was to in about 2,000 words for each artist, I tried to provide history, backstories, things that people might not know, how they met, how they started, who their influences are, some cool trivia, things that people would be able to find, entertaining, and combined with Jim's. The whole thing is bringing together Jim's pictures with my writing makes this a very readable, easy to read book, and it brings his photos to life. So yeah, I this way people could learn how the band started, and we tried to make the book very current. So when the book was published, everything was up to date as of 2024 on each of these acts. So it's a really complete history.
That's awesome. I mean, I can't remember if you said, when did you, what year did you guys meet?
In the 70s, somewhere.
In the 70s.
Okay.
We knew each other through mutual friends, Matt. And like I said, Jim and I could sit and talk about music for hours, and we would go to concerts together. And that's kind of how this whole thing started, to the point where once I retired from my corporate work, I had the free time to finally get into the thing that I've always loved my entire life. And I'm having a ball. Jim and I are just having so much fun. And we've got more books planned.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're working on now. It's called Never Too Old to Rock and Roll. So it's all the bands that I've photographed in the 2000s, 21st century, who are still out there performing from the classic rock era. So if anyone from the 60s, 70s, and 80s who are still performing, and believe it or not, I've got over 250 acts already. So we're working on that, and hopefully we'll have the writing done. So get your butt going here, Mike. Have the writing done by the end of next year and hopefully find a publisher right away.
And we also have a book planned on, the rock and roll industry in the 60s, 70s, 80s was very male oriented, Matt. And a lot of times we've been interviewed and they'll look at our first books. And if we get a female interviewer, she'll go, there are a lot of guys in your books. Where are the women? Well, we have Hart and we have Grace Slick from the Jefferson Airplane and so forth. But things have changed now. Jim and I have been able to go to shows. There's some incredible female guitar players out there, particularly in the blues rock genre. And we plan to write a book on women keeping the blues alive, particularly female guitar players. I'm not talking about mega pop stars like Beyonce and so forth, or Taylor Swift. There are some women that are really rocking out there, and you just have to find them, go to the clubs, and a lot of them are from the UK, a lot of them are from the United States, and so we plan on doing a book on that as well.
That's fantastic. That's awesome.
And just one other thing I want to mention, I'm very proud. I recently received an email from a guy with the Library of Congress. He asked me if I would be interested in writing a 2,000-word essay on the band Chicago and their first album, which was called CTA. They were originally called the Chicago Transit Authority. That album has been selected for the National Recording Registry, and they said, well, we can't pay you, but I said, I don't care.
Same.
Let's do it anyway. Yeah.
So that's quite an honor out of nowhere for somebody to call me like that, to see our book, find me, and ask me to write a little bio and history on the band Chicago and that first album.
That is awesome. That's so cool. Now, in your books, about the authors section, you actually mention a special moment regarding Oprah Winfrey. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm going to make this quick.
Yeah.
Many years ago, I was between jobs. All of us have been between jobs at one point or another. A good friend of mine said, let's write a book on smart money shopping. He's deceased now. He was my best friend. So we wrote this book.
I thought I was your best friend.
Well, I didn't know you back then.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
So I used my marketing and PR abilities to try and get us on radio and TV. And lo and behold, I get a call from Oprah Winfrey's producer. Now, this was 1986. Oprah was not national yet. Let me make sure that people understand. She was still regional. So she said, why don't you come on our show and we're going to give you some money. Go out and buy a bunch of merchandise. Show us how you can save money by knowing where to shop. So we went out and we bought this, and then we went out and bought some Air Jordans. And we found out Oprah's size in terms of her shoe size. So we brought these Air Jordans on the air, and Oprah took off her shoes and she said, put them on my feet. So she lifts up. I mean, this is Oprah Winfrey. Mm-hmm. So here, my friend Alan and I are lacing on Air Jordans on her feet. To end the story, the appearance on that show, Matt, changed my whole corporate career. It opened doors up in the corporate world to where being on that show was almost more important than the skills I brought to the job. And it allowed me to find my way into positions and jobs that I wasn't necessarily qualified for. So Oprah is a very powerful woman. And to this day, I still kind of use the reference when I'm trying to get us on a radio or TV show and so forth. So don't say anything bad about Oprah. In my book, she changed my life.
I love it. That is that is really a quite a very life-changing, memorable experience.
Yes, it was it is life-changing.
That is so cool. The time is already flying by fast here. We got a couple minutes left, about 2 minutes or so. Tell us a little bit on how people can find more information about you, and for those who are interested in checking out your podcast as well.
Okay, great.
Well, you could go to my website, which is jimsummariaphoto.com, and take a look at all my photographs. What was the other question? See, I'm older. I forget things so quick.
Okay. Matt, real quickly, I just want to say, this guy sitting next to me, he is so humble. And because Jim, he's based in Chicago, his photographs have appeared all over the world with some of the most prestigious institutions and organizations, books, magazine, artists have asked for his photography. Jeff Beck, Christie's of London recently asked Jim for 3 photos of Jeff Beck for the auction of his gear. That was quite an honor. Okay, I've said enough about you. Yes. We are streaming out of the Illinois Rock and Roll Museum. Our show airs every Tuesday and every Thursday, but all the shows are archived on the museum's website. You can go to Illinois Rock and Roll Museum on Route 66 and just go to menu and look for podcasts. You can see all our shows and what they're about. And every week's show is 55 minutes. Each show is different with songs, talks, history, backstories. Jim and I try to have some fun. So, yeah, it's been going. We've been going about 7 weeks now.
We're living the life, baby.
I love it. We'll definitely have you guys on again. We'll continue to promote you as well. Thank you both, Jim and Mark, for joining us today.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks so much, folks. We'll take a quick time out. We'll be back with more in just a bit.
Bye-bye.